Hello, everyone. My name is Heather Brewster. I'm the manager of the Northeast North American support team here at MicroStrategy. And today's topic is about the setup, configuration, and support for distribution services. Andrew, go to the next slide. All right, so today we are joined by a number of different distribution services experts throughout the MicroStrategy organization. You'll be hearing primarily from Andrew Geister, who is a senior product specialist on our North American support team. And Andrew is going to be sharing with you all his expertise on distribution services, the workflow, setup, administration, and some troubleshooting tips as well. Additionally, we're joined by, you can go back, Andrew. There you go. Morgan Patterson from our technology department, and she'll be sharing with us some slides about the MicroStrategy product roadmap for distribution services. And we also have Jason Hudson from our education team. He's going to be introducing our education courses that you can take advantage of to gain a deeper knowledge of distribution services. And we also are joined by Rick Kellerman, our principal product specialist from the North American support team. Rick and our other experts here are going to be answering your questions at the end during our Q&A session. And as a reminder, this webinar will be recorded afterwards. If you do ask a question, you can go back and watch the answer later. All right. And before we get started, I want to remind you all that our MicroStrategy 2021 enterprise platform is already out, and it really allows you to leverage our open architecture and our modern analytics, especially with your dossiers that you can use on any supported device of your choice. We also want to definitely emphasize that with 2021, you can ensure that you're able to deliver trusted answers quickly and with sophisticated security, really at an enterprise scale. So really great features that you can take advantage of in 2021. And so also we want to highlight that while we focus heavily on enhancements for end users, there are lots of key enhancements in 2021 that make it a lot easier to manage and administer your MicroStrategy enterprise. And so when mentioning enterprise administration, we really want to highlight our tool workstation, which we are kind of constantly adding new features and capabilities to. And we'll be talking a little bit more about during the end of this presentation, but it really is kind of an administrative tool with all of the different components that we're adding into it. It's going to make it very easy for you to administer and manage your MicroStrategy environment. And this is definitely relevant because Workstation has the ability to manage, execute, and review your subscriptions. So this is kind of our one-stop shop for managing all of your different items in MicroStrategy. All right, and with that, I'm going to hand it over to my teammate, Andrew. He's going to be sharing his expertise about distribution services.
Hello, everyone, and thank you, Heather, for the kind introduction. My name is Andrew. I'm a senior product specialist here with MicroStrategy, and I'll be taking you through what distribution services is and how it fits into the MicroStrategy architecture. So first, let's start with a brief introduction for what distribution services is and how it functions. Distribution services itself is actually a very large set of functionalities underneath a single umbrella. The purpose of distribution services is the automation and operation of content without manual effort, whether that be through integration with other components like Command Manager and System Manager, and the delivery of content to wherever your end users are. As this does encompass a large section of different items within the MicroStrategy enterprise, it does have a lot of fine elements to it and configuration that can be required in order to meet various use cases for distribution services. Thinking about some of the more common use cases that distribution services is, since it does encompass such a wide range of functionality. One of the largest use cases that we do experience with support is the pre-execution of content. For example, as a customer, there could be a requirement for delivering specific dossiers or reports that showcase the sales that the CFO needs in order to make business decisions. Unfortunately, due to the amount of content, as the business size is quite large, it takes some time for the data sets to run. So distribution services operates as a simple method of pre-caching content for those high-profile accounts. That way they can always get the instant viewing access that they need for their meetings. In addition to things like pre-caching, distribution services also offers administrative functionality. Whether this is the implementation of intelligent cubes or even managing specific elements of the project. For example, it's quite possible that for a data warehouse ETL that is run every week, the dependent projects need to be unavailable, because if the projects are running, then the end users might receive some incomplete or incorrect data as the ETL is processing on the back end. So distribution services offers the capability to manage and schedule the outages for your projects. Along with the internal functionality for caching and administrative functionalities, the distribution services umbrella also offers the ability to push content to the end users. With operations becoming very large and introducing more than a single software, the ability to share data between applications has become increasingly important. One of the capabilities distribution services has for that is exporting content to different file types on network drives so that the other software can come in and automatically process that content. Distribution services can also be used in order to provide alerting whenever certain metrics are passed. Alert-based thresholds can automatically send out, only when required, information such as sales breakdowns or metrics on team activity if that's being captured, in order to monitor and proactively reach out to different aspects of the business to alert them to what needs to be done to keep up to standards. And of course, the most central feature of distribution services and how it's primarily received is through email. MicroStrategy, through distribution services, offers email not just to MicroStrategy users themselves, but also allows the delivery of insights to remote team members that may not even have an account within the MicroStrategy ecosystem through the contacts. The core functionality for distribution services operates through three different concepts: the concept of content, schedules, and recipients. Content is going to be what is being acted upon. This is commonly referred to as essentially what the job is that runs on the intelligence server. This is your dossiers, your intelligent cubes, your reports, even in some cases, if you're doing administration, your projects or your cache files. Schedules is the concept that goes behind how content is being delivered. So predominantly, this is done through time-based or event-based schedules. Time-based, we use an internal scheduler within the intelligence server, while event-based allows for both manual execution as well as programmatic enhancements through third-party customizations via Command Manager and other APIs to call events and do things whenever it's needed to, as determined outside of the MicroStrategy enterprise. The final concept is our recipient, and that is who the content is being delivered to. This can be everything from file devices, FTP servers, printers, email, or caches. For how it works, distribution services is essentially a 5-step workflow. The first step of anything within distribution services is that the intelligent server will receive a trigger from a specific schedule. The schedule itself is triggered either via an event being fired or a specific pre-configured time being passed. Once the intelligent server has received the trigger, it'll move on to the second step, which is the processing of the subscription. The processing of the subscription involves the intelligent server reading the configuration out of the metadata, determining what content is to be delivered and where it's being delivered to, as well as the load balancing of the jobs across each node of your intelligent server cluster. Once the processing is finished, execution begins, and each node will take its received jobs, add them to the queue for the intelligent server, or immediately start if possible. After execution has begun, the jobs will be handled as regular jobs all the way to completion. And then finally, the delivery step comes in, and whatever content is made is packaged by a transmitter and sent to whomever or wherever the insight is required. Now that we've introduced what distribution services is, let's have a look at the steps and key terms in the deployment and configuration of distribution services. In order to configure distribution services, we do have to follow the overall key 3 concepts of distribution services that was discussed earlier. So the first step is creating events and schedules. Events and schedules are created via MicroStrategy Developer and allow you to set up the triggers for when your subscriptions are being required. Once the schedules are set up, then the devices are also required. The devices are going to be the way that content is being packaged within the environment. There are different devices for each different delivery type, and they describe how the intelligent server moves content from inside of its own memory to the destination. And finally, we just have creating the subscriptions. Creating the subscriptions can be done in multiple different interfaces, including MicroStrategy Workstation in version 2021. Depending on the type of content that's being delivered, sometimes different interfaces are required, but the generation of the subscriptions allows you to create a link within the metadata that describes the entirety of the delivery from end to end. So now that we've discussed the high-level concepts, let's take a look at a demonstration of creating events and schedules using using Developer for distribution services. In this video, we're going to take a look at generating events and schedules using MicroStrategy Developer. In order to create an event or schedule using MicroStrategy Developer, you must first log into your project source using an account with elevated privileges. For this demonstration, we're going to be using the out-of-the-box administrator account. After logging in, we can proceed to Administration, Configuration Managers, and first we're going to create an event. For this event, we're just going to hit right-click New Event. This will bring up the change journaling screen. For the event that we're creating today, we are going to use this to trigger an ETL completion event. And so we're going to include into the change journal a relevant name. After the change journal has been entered, you'll then be prompted to enter the name for the event object itself. We're going to give this a similar name of ETL completion event. Now that we've created an event, we'll take a look at generating our two different types of schedules. The first schedule that we'll create is going to be a front-end schedule for the event that we just created. So we'll get right-click, New Schedule, and here we're going to name our new schedule ETL completion schedule. And we'll use the summary as a description so that it is auto-populated. Since we are using an event for this, we'll select Event Triggered. And for this schedule, we are going to have this expire later this year. So we'll select End By and August 31st, so the event will not trigger after that date. Then we'll have the option of selecting which events we'd like to use. So we'll select the event that we just created, the ETL completion event, and then hit Next. This will give us a final overview of the schedule, and we can simply hit Finish to complete it. In addition to the event-based schedules, we can also create time-based schedules. For our time-based schedule, we'll create a schedule to operate every day at 4 a.m. So we'll call this 4 a.m. weekday schedule. Here we'll still maintain as a time-triggered event, and this schedule will not expire. Since we're doing this every weekday at 4 a.m., we'll select every weekday here, and then change our time of day to 4 a.m. On this page, we'll see all of the upcoming executions of the schedule for when subscriptions that are tied to it will trigger. And if the results are correct, we'll simply hit Next and Finish to create our second schedule. Now that we've taken a look at creating our events and schedules, the next step will be setting up our devices in order to leverage them using distribution services. In this video, we're going to take a look at the creation of devices used in distribution services by a MicroStrategy developer. This functionality is available to administrator-level accounts within the MicroStrategy ecosystem under Administration, Delivery Managers, and Devices. For the purposes of this demonstration, we're going to create three distinct types of devices to cover the most common use cases. The first device that we will create is an FTP device. This is a FTP device that's going to be built for a specific user who has requested the functionality. So we're going to name this for that user. This is Wendy's FTP server. Since Wendy has configured FTP over SSL, we will enable that option to secure our transmissions. And then we will put in the host information that was provided to us so that it is clear that the contents are coming from our intelligent server. We are going to identify with an additional appended path to the root location where the user is configured to write on the FTP server. Then we're also going to put in our user credentials that were provided by the FTP server administrator. We are going to verify this at this time to make sure that the credentials provided are correct. As the verifications come back successfully, we will hit OK here and save out our new device. Since this device was intended for a single person, we are then going to go into the properties of the device, and we're going to remove the everyone view option, and then add back in the ACLs for the specific user who has requested access. Find Wendy here and hit OK and add them back on. So we have now configured our new FTP device for the user. The second device that we will be taking a look at is an email device. This email device is going to be set up as an embedded HTML device. So we are going to name this as email embedded HTML. In order to embed the contents, we are going to go into our MIME options. We're going to enable both of the embed options, as well as the use only table to position elements in HTML in order to preserve the best formatting possible inside of the delivered email. Then we're going to configure our smart host. this situation, we have a single specific mail server that we want to use. We do not want to use any other mail servers. We're going to put in the host name of the mail server first. Our mail server does use the default port, so we will leave that as it is. And we're going to put in our credentials. That way, the intelligence server can use start TLS on the transmission to the mail server, and always use smart host to prevent the intelligence server from attempting to send this delivery through other mail servers. And we have now finished. Our email device, the last device that we'll be taking a look at, is our file device. The file device that we're going to be creating is for a public network share that will allow users to export from our intelligence server to a mounted file drive and then access the contents. So we're going to call this our public network export. The server that is hosting this intelligence server is a Linux machine. So this has been mounted right underneath the root directory for the intelligence server machine. And we are also going to allow for appending user paths. That way, since this is a public share, users, when they create subscriptions, can add on additional folders to allow for better organization. We'll simply hit OK. Since we do not get an error, that does mean we were able to successfully verify the file location, and the device has now been created. So now that we've taken a look at creating some of the backend elements, the other thing that is involved with distribution services is the management of your subscriptions. Since subscriptions are available in multiple different interfaces, it can be difficult at times to monitor and track everything that is being run in a very large MicroStrategy environment. For this, we do recommend the use of MicroStrategy Workstation. MicroStrategy Workstation in 2021 Update 1 has a new interface where it allows viewing and control of the subscriptions within your MicroStrategy environments, as well as advanced filtering and view options. When controlling your subscriptions, there are a few key points in order to keep in mind. The first is that while you are creating schedules and events, these are one-to-many relationships. So a single event can have many schedules, which can have many different subscriptions. Because of this, it is possible to have a very large load introduced with just a single click of an event. And it becomes very important from the administrative perspective to ensure that only the needed subscriptions are ever being triggered at a specific time to prevent overloading the environment and causing delays of key content behind less important content. It's also important to remember that distinct delivery methods do have various privileges. Underneath the server distribution license, we do have the ability to control what types of services and subscriptions a user can create. This can allow for vetting what users are allowed to represent content in what specific manners on the environment. In the same vein as reports and dossiers, there's also the ability to limit what schedules, contacts, and devices can be used via ACLs. We saw that in the demonstration where we prohibited use of the FTP device except for Wendy's specific user. So this can be taken advantage of in order to limit access and control where information is being sent. While subscriptions do generate jobs in the intelligence server, the intelligence server does also offer distinct governing settings to control how scheduled jobs are run. This can be everything from different timeouts, different numbers of jobs that can be in a queue, or including in our newer versions on Linux, for example, we have the nice settings of capability in order to give processor priority to interactive jobs versus scheduled jobs. That way, your end users can always be getting the best experience. And if possible, those distribution services users could wait the little extra time to get their email. Now that we've taken a discussion for how to configure distribution services, let's now take a look at the management of distribution services. As has been mentioned earlier, Workstation in 2021 offers our best interface for controlling subscriptions throughout the MicroStrategy ecosystem. The management of subscriptions does not specifically have to be done by the administrator, although the administrator is going to have the most capabilities for this, including the ability to manage other users' subscriptions. While Workstation is available, it is also possible for them during the self-management of subscriptions for end users to do this through Platform Web. And there are, of course, still options available in Developer or Command Manager and through our APIs. Workstation, in addition to the different filtering capabilities, does also offer execution and alteration of existing subscriptions. And we do also have the ability to configure the scheduler service. The scheduler service is what controls distribution services and can essentially enable or disable the functionality at the server-wide level. This can be taken advantage of during parallel upgrades to allow for having both environments running at the same time without sending duplicate emails or content to your end users. Contacts are the special object that we have in addition to just the MicroStrategy user that allow us to designate where a user is and how content should be received by them. In order for someone to deliver content to a person, whether that be within the MicroStrategy ecosystem or not, they must have the view access, ACL, to either the user object or the contact object within the metadata, and it must have an applicable delivery address attached to either that user or contact. Contacts are associated to a specific user object. Because they're associated to that user object, that allows it to gather privileges and a security profile in order to filter and protect data from being sent that should not be received. It is also worth mentioning that contacts do consume named user licenses. A contact will consume a server distribution license and either a server reporter or server intelligence license, depending on whether the user it is associated to consumes server reporter or server intelligence. One of our newer features that we have in order to improve the administration of your subscriptions is our bucketing functionality. Bucketing allows multiple, or what would be multiple jobs that have the same desired delivery content to be grouped together into a single job. That way you can have what would be 100 jobs executing for different sales personnel, for example, only being executed a single time instead of 100 times on the intelligence server. This helps to reduce load and reuses the content for each different recipient. When bucketing is enabled and in use for the environment, we do take this into account before we go into our load balancing logic. So we will not have a disparate load even if jobs are bucketed, because if you take that 100 jobs down to 5 jobs, we'll then just merge out those 5 jobs instead of trying to say send 50 to one intelligence server and 50 to another, and then getting 4 jobs on one intelligence server and only a single job on the latter. The way that bucketing works is entirely dependent, though, on the user security profile. This is very similar to our caching architecture, in that we take every precaution possible in order to protect data security. This means that even if the 2 users may technically receive the same content at the end of the day, if we detect any differences in their user security profiles, which is going to be gathered through things like connection mapping or ACLs, then we will not take any risks and we'll prevent bucketing between those two users. This can mean that in environments with system prompts and very in-depth security filters, that bucketing is something that is more difficult to take advantage of. The way that bucketing works is that, similar to a regular subscription, we will trigger the schedule and begin the processing of the subscription. But as we process it and boil it down, in this example, we have a sales report that goes out to 3 different regions, and there's 6 users, 2 in each region. We will find that for these 6 users, they each have a security filter, which is the region where their store is stationed. So there's 2 stores on our West Coast, 2 stores on our East Coast, and then 2 international stores for the business. So instead of executing 6 jobs here, we'll execute 3 jobs, and the West Coast job execution will be delivered to the users 1 and 2, East Coast 3 and 4, international to 5 and 6. Another powerful element that we do have for managing our subscriptions is the usage of dynamic recipient lists. Dynamic recipient lists offer the ability to allow the intelligent server to calculate who the content should be delivered to in real time. This does rely on mapping via a report the users into the metadata and does allow for some personalization. Because dynamic recipient lists does have a lot of configuration elements present, we are going to take a look at a quick demo on how to set up dynamic recipient lists. In this video, we're going to take a look at how to create dynamic recipient lists, otherwise known as dynamic address lists. A dynamic address list allows an intelligent server to, at runtime of a subscription, determine who the content should be delivered to and how the content is to be delivered. In order to accomplish this, we must first create a new report that contains the relevant connectivity details. Within this demonstration, we are going to deliver to team members who have action pending. So to accomplish this, we're going to first select our specialist attribute and our device attribute. This will give us a list of team members as well as the devices in MicroStrategy to deliver content directly to them. We're also going to include our notification and notification device attributes so that we can send a follow-up email to concerned parties about the content being delivered. Since we only want to deliver to team members with action pending, we are also going to go into our metrics and add the cases pending metric. This will act as a filter so that team members who do not need to receive this content will not receive a superfluous email. Now that we have our baseline report created, we're going to save this. And this will be our dynamic address list specialists. But we're going to immediately run our newly saved report. Now that we've executed our report, we can see that we do have a list of team specialists, their email addresses, devices which represent email drivers through MicroStrategy, and then team members who should be notified, as well as how to notify those team members. Now, we are on this page going to edit our attribute forms to add on the ID attribute form. That way we have a GUID which represents the user within the metadata as well. And then save this report once more. Now that our report has been finalized, we can head to our web preferences and our dynamic address list to create a new dynamic address list. For this dynamic address list, we're just going to call this our specialist dynamic address list. And then we're going to select the report that we just created. Now that we've selected our report, you'll see that some attributes have automatically been populated. However, we do need to make sure that all of the relationships here are correct. For the physical address, we will use the email form that we saw in the report earlier. The linked user ID will use the ID form that was added to the report after saving. And for the device, we'll use the device ID. Since we do have names for our users, we will include that as well as our description form. That way, the recipients do get a more personalized content. And we can also include our notification details as well. Then we can simply hit save, and our new dynamic address list has been created. In addition to dynamic address lists, for the real-time slicing of data, we do as well offer the bursting feature. Bursting, in a way, does have some similar functionality when looked at to dynamic recipient lists or bucketing. The difference is, though, bursting uses grouping or page by functions within the underlying content in order to achieve the goal of a single piece of content being broken into pieces and sent to many different users. In order to understand bursting, we're going to now take a quick demo of implementation for bursting within MicroStrategy. In this video, I'm going to demonstrate how to create a simple bursting subscription. In order to create a bursting subscription, you must use a report or document that contains a page by or a group by function. This will denote what slices exist for the object so that it can be delivered to various recipients with their own personalized content. In this report execution, you can see that I have in my page by function the RPS attribute, and it's currently paged to my own element, including an email form. In order to generate the bursting subscription, we can then go to my report home, subscribe, and email. Inside of the bursting report subscription, we can first give it a name of bursting project tasks. We will send this every day at 4 a.m. so that it's prepared for each of the team members that's receiving the report when they come in the morning. We will not make any changes, however, to the to attribute. Instead, we will open up the bursting menu and select the RPS attribute that is present within the page by function. As the page by function has an email attribute form, you can see that it has been automatically populated as the address form here. If your forms are not named, so that one of them is the email, you can instead select this box and choose which attribute form to populate the email address from. As this email is being delivered to HTML, I'm going to change my device to my email embedded HTML device. Inside of the email that will be received, I do want to personalize this so that it has the date for everyone who receives it. And we will also add, inside of the message, the RPS attribute and the name form so that each recipient does receive a personalized message. That's recording. Strategy. After typing out our message, we can simply send a preview now and hit OK to generate our new bursting subscription. Bursting does support multiple different attributes, similar to how page by and group by also allow for multiple attributes to exist within the object's properties. However, when setting up a bursting subscription, the attributes that are selected must represent a single unique slice of data. If a subset of attributes from the page by or group by function is selected within bursting, it does not allow for a unique slice of data to be populated, then the bursting subscription will fail. Here we can see that my own delivery has come through, and we have the relevant date and RPS name coming in, as well as my content embedded inside of my email. Saving the best for last, we do have brand new in MicroStrategy 2021 Update 1, our new multi-content subscriptions. Multi-content subscriptions was one of the largest use cases that we had received feedback on, being supported through Narrowcast, but not through distribution services. Now we have offered the ability to take advantage of multi-content to deliver multiple reports, documents, or dossiers in tandem within a single email. This will cut down on load for third-party elements such as mail servers and offer the ability to present a single unified bit of truth instead of having to tab through multiple different emails in order to understand the content being received. Beginning in MicroStrategy 2021 Update 1, Workstation now has the ability to create multi-content subscriptions, which are subscriptions that contain multiple different objects, whether they are reports, documents, or dossiers, within a single email and deliver it to different end users. The functionality is also available through our REST API. In this demonstration, we will be looking at it through Workstation. Once Workstation is connected, we can go under Administration Subscriptions and generate a new subscription. This will allow us to check which project we would like to generate the subscription for. And we'll open up our subscription interface in Workstation. In the top left corner, we can name our subscription. This will be the multi-content customer overview subscription. And we're going to add a dossier first, the customer stability overview. This dossier is a prompted dossier. So we are going to see the prompt menu come up. I'm going to leave all of the prompts as their default answers here, although they can be altered. And for this content, I do want this delivered as an MSTR file for interactability. After we've added our dossier, I'm also going to add in one of our reports, which is our Resolve Stability Issues report. This also has a similar prompt to it. And again, we're going to keep the same prompt answers here so that we're consistent between our two pieces of content. And for this report, I'm going to have it delivered in a PDF format. Now that we have both our dossier and our report set up, we're going to add in the administrator as the baseline for the delivery. We're also going to CC both myself and Heather. We will select our schedule, which is going to be after the ETL completion. For the subject of our subscription, this will be our customer overview and stability fixes. I'm going to include the date, name. Please find included the customer stability overview and resolved issues following today's ETL completion. MicroStrategy. And we have our multi-content subscription, which we can then send immediately. So take us back to our subscription management overview page. Now that we've discussed some of the new content that we have, as well as configuration for distribution services, I would like to take a quick bit of time to discuss some of the common pitfalls, as well as what can be done to help understand when problems do arise using distribution services. The first thing is how to investigate subscription errors. Quite often, when subscriptions are failing, the end users who receive the content will reach out. However, it is possible to configure administrative notifications. Administrative notifications will allow you to be notified first when an email or other subscription job does fail. And this can be done both at the project level for failures inside of the intelligent server itself, or if you're looking specifically at emails, we can configure the intelligent server to send a signal to the SMTP server so that it can follow up to ensure that content is being delivered or you're receiving a notification. If administrative notifications aren't desired, then the next location that can be viewed is the dss_errors.log, available on any intelligent server by default. For these cases, a search can be done for the failed subscription text, and that will give you the name of your subscription as well as the errors that were being received for it. In MicroStrategy, we also offered the ability to use platform analytics as a dedicated method for monitoring the environment in a single fashion. This can be much more valuable in order to review the success of subscriptions than simply looking through the dss_errors.log. In order to do this, there's two key dossiers for distribution services. The first being the subscription analysis dossier. The subscription analysis dossier allows you to review the performance and load of your subscriptions. And the error analysis dossier helps you easily view failures if the DSS errors log doesn't capture the error, or if you'd like to use the dossier format instead of searching the DSS errors log directly. In addition to these out-of-the-box components, there are additional diagnostics which can be enabled to get a deeper dive into the cause of the failure. I'm going to discuss a few of those now. The first two diagnostics we have here are both enabled through our diagnostics configuration utility, and these are the distribution services trigger trace and scheduler traces. These two file logs can allow you to quickly identify if there's an issue with the actual starting of the job in the very first step before we get into the processing and execution, for if content isn't being delivered and there's no apparent errors of a job actually failing. Next, we have our SMTP sender trace file log diagnostic, again through our diagnostics and performance tool. This can be helpful if there are issues with the handoff between the intelligent server and your target mail server. We also have our delivery trace, again under distribution services. This is different than our SMTP sender trace in that it's not specifically targeted just towards mail server deliveries, but encompasses delivery as a whole. This does involve anything that is strictly speaking delivered and not persisted locally, such as caches or cubes. For caches and cubes, still under the distribution services component, we instead have the persist result trace, which is going to help identify problems where you're saving results that's local to the intelligent server instead of directly sending the content to the end user. The final bit of additional diagnostics, whenever emails aren't being directly observable, we do have the ability to, in addition to sending content, to also save content to a file. This can allow you to capture the email file before it's actually handled by the SMTP server to ensure its contents are both correct and being generated. Since we've taken a look at a few of the diagnostics, I do also want to discuss two very common situations and if they were received, how to address those. The first of these is our document data preparation task error. So not all dataset reports are complete. In this situation, we do have our administrative notification coming in and telling us why the delivery is failing. However, not all dataset reports are complete is a bit open-ended. So in this situation, we can use the DSS errors log in order to find the corresponding failed subscription message for this error code. Once the line within the DSS errors log has been identified, that will include user and session details. Tracking the user and session details, looking farther back inside the DSS errors log, there will be a preceding job failure for one of the child elements, and that will be the answer for why the subscription has failed. The other situation that we'd like to take a look at is a very vague request, but often it is what an end user receives, and that is that they received nothing from their subscriptions when they expected it. In this situation, either we don't have administrative notifications or the administrative notification wasn't received. Here we can take advantage of our error analysis dossier within Platform Analytics. We will add on the status attribute. The status attribute isn't on by default, but it does give a more granular breakdown of the exact error codes. In this situation, we see that after adding the status attribute, we have a couple of SMTP errors that are being returned to us from the mail server. So following this, because we are seeing connectivity issues against the mail exchange, as well as accounts not being reachable, we do know that we need to follow up with our mail server team in order to address these resource problems. At this time, after going through some of our capabilities, configurations, and troubleshooting, I would like to hand this off to Morgan in order to discuss the upcoming roadmap for distribution services.
Awesome. Thank you, Andrew. Hi, everyone. As Andrew said, my name is Morgan Patterson, and I am one of the product managers here at MicroStrategy. I work on distribution services as well as Workstation, and I'm excited today to talk to you a little bit more about what's coming up in the Update 2, Update 3, and 2022 general availability releases later this year. So first things first, coming out in Update 2, which is actually planned to be released sometime next week, so keep an eye out for that. The first piece is changing subscription ownership. This was something that a lot of our customers requested because currently, there's no way for you to change the owner of a subscription. So if you have somebody who leaves the company or transfers departments, that subscription can be sent and then very difficult to maintain when that person is no longer there. So as a result, we've added the ability to simply right mouse click on a subscription and change the owner to a new user in your system that has access to the relevant content. Second thing that we're also introducing in Update 2, Andrew did a great job going through a lot of the workflows that we have available for admins in Developer, but we are now adding the ability to create and manage those schedule objects inside of Workstation. So much like you've seen with the other monitors that we looked at today in Workstation, we now have a place for you to view and manage all of your schedule objects, and also the ability to create and manage new schedules. And one thing I'd like to highlight here is that we actually have additional support for some new use cases, things like the last business day, last day of the month, first business day, all that good stuff is now available inside of the schedule editor. Transitioning to Update 3, we have a couple exciting enhancements planned for that quarter. The first piece of this is the ability to create and manage subscriptions in Library. So we recognize that, currently today, Library is designed as this primary consumption tool for our end users who may be the ones receiving a lot of the subscriptions. And so we realized there was a gap there of not being able to support those subscriptions inside of Library. And we're introducing the ability for users to see the ones that they receive and own, and then unsubscribe if they need to in certain use cases. Another one I wanted to highlight is something coming in the platform release later this year. And this is a new feature to be able to create snapshots or essentially historical views of your data. We're pushing this in the MicroStrategy app to be able to take advantage of client-side caching as well as the server-side caching. So essentially what you can do is choose to take a picture of your data at a moment in time so that you can then have a historical record and look back at your previous versions of this dossier. And then last but not least, this one is my personal favorite. This is another feature that we have slated for 2022 GA. And we're essentially taking the ability to add multiple pieces of content to a subscription and taking it up one more level by allowing users to include dossiers inside the body of an email. So we know this is a big request, a big pain point right now. And so we're excited to be able to close that gap and then also make enhancements to our existing subscription editor to have a really modern and exciting experience. So with that, that was a quick rundown of all of the features, and I will now pass it over to Jason to talk a little bit more about MicroStrategy's education offerings in this regard.
Hello, my name is Jason Hudson. I am a senior training consultant for MicroStrategy, and I would love to have you come join us for MicroStrategy education. If you'll move to the next slide, please. As you'll see here, we offer over 50 courses in among 14 different learning paths. There are 14 different certifications that are available. Over here to the right, you'll see that the Analyst Pass includes 4 different certifications, and these kind of focus on those skills that are necessary for the end users of various types, right? There's the Analyst certification, the Data Scientist certification, and the Developer certification are part of the Analyst Pass, including the Analyst recertification as of 2021. In the Architect Pass, it also includes 10 additional certifications and their associated learning paths. And these each focus on a different leadership role within the Intelligence Center. So if you either currently have or you'd like to have a leadership role in the Intelligence Center, we're here to help you be prepared for that. Now, all these courses are available in multiple formats. We have course recordings and the e-learning software. And both of those are excellent because they're available at any time. While we do have many instructors, not only offering courses in many different languages and all sorts of areas of the globe, I am rather partial to the instructor-led classes. We are a delightful bunch. We are certified, first of all. We are engaging and entertaining, and some might even say really, really good looking as well. So definitely come join us for that as my favorite option as far as the MicroStrategy education is concerned. Now, to focus today, given the content we were going over, let's have the next slide, please. We have 2 particular courses I wanted to point out as they relate to the content we've been covering today. First of all is 2021.311 Administration for Enterprise Analytics. That's part of the Platform Administrator Learning Path. The Platform Administrator is the person responsible for installing and configuring the various components of the MicroStrategy platform. And in that role, they're the one most directly responsible for subscriptions and the distribution services. In this course, the Administration for Enterprise Analytics, you'll get experience not only with creating and managing subscriptions, you'll also get experience with many of the tools that you saw Andrew using earlier, including Developer, Workstation, MicroStrategy Web, and the Diagnostics and Performance Logging tool. That is available with the Architect Pass, and there is also the 2021.215 Embedding Analytics with MicroStrategy REST API. Now, this is absolutely, without question, my favorite course to lead. Among all of them, this is my favorite. There's a huge amount of amazing material available in there. The REST API can be used not only for creating and managing your subscriptions, but it also opens up just a wealth of other opportunities for automation and management, ease of management and just integration of MicroStrategy with other tools. It's pretty phenomenal technology. So I'd love to see you come and join me for that one. All right, thank you very much. And with that, I'm going to pass it back over to Heather to start off our Q&A.
All right, great. Thank you so much, Jason, Andrew, and Morgan. We really appreciate you all sharing that great info with us. And now we're going to go ahead and get started with the Q&A. So I see we've already have some questions submitted, and we've answered a couple just through the Q&A feature, but we're going to go over some of the ones that we already answered and ones that we haven't answered yet live right now. But you can always continue to ask questions through the Q&A feature as we go on, and we'll try to get to as many as we can. And okay, so we're going to go ahead and get started. And so the first question we have here is the content flowed through the network encrypted? So Andrew, do you want to go ahead and answer that one? Oh, Andrew, you can't hear you.
Oh,
There we
my
go.
apologies. I had hit my microphone button. For distribution services, we do offer the ability to support various encryptions, but it's going to depend on the configuration. So for emails, for example, if you have smart host configured and the credentials present, the intelligence server will attempt to use TLS if the mail server does support it. As well, for things like FTP, we do include the ability to allow for either SFTP or FTPS for the deliveries. So there are options available if the recipients are configured to accept them.
Okay, awesome. All right. The next question we have here is, if I create a subscription which sends an email to 10 people, will the emails be sent to them in a sequential manner, or will the emails be generated randomly? So the example mentioned is, if you send email 1, 2, and 3, are they going to be triggered randomly, or are they going to deliver one after the other?
So this is a bit of an interesting question because there could be a lot of different actual factors going on in here. If you take the most basic description of 10 people receiving a single piece of content, then if you're on our newest versions of MicroStrategy, they'll all receive the email at the same time because they'll all be on the same email. Because in that situation, we're going to use our bucketing, we're going to use our group recipient list to put it all into a single concise bit of content. Once you start adding in things like security filters, though, or you're not using these additional features, then it's going to come down to the job execution on the intelligence server. So if, say, 4 of your 10 users have a security filter which brings back a lot more data than the other users, their jobs are going to be a bit slower, so they're going to receive the emails later than the users with the smaller version of the security settings.
Okay, great. All right, thanks, Andrew. All right, and we have a question here for a dynamic address list. Is there a way to set a preference for a user receiving certain reports, similar to what can be done in Narrowcast for personal page preference? Rick, do you?
Yeah, it's definitely possible. When you create the dynamic address list, there's an optional property for the personalization. And yeah, it's actually implemented similarly to how it is in Narrowcast. You get the prompt XML, and in the personalized field is where you would put that.
And I believe we have a knowledge base article that can highlight a little bit more of that, and we can definitely include that if in the follow-up email, so that you can see how to do that there. Okay, and then a question about after creating the dynamic address list, how do you create a subscription that uses it?
Dynamic address lists will be essentially available the same way contacts or users are. When you have that available inside of your preferences for your user, and you go to create your subscription, it'll be selectable in the to field, just like my own personal user or some of my own personal contacts would be available.
Okay, and then another question about kind of the difference between Narrowcast and distribution services. What about Excel templates in Narrowcast with multiple worksheets in one Excel file? Can you do the same thing in distribution services?
You cannot in distribution. I think it's on the roadmap, right, Morgan?
Yeah, so I can comment a little bit more about this. We don't have this currently available unless you were doing something with the page by field in distribution services. But it's something that we're evaluating in terms of how we can, kind of close that gap between Narrowcast and distribution services. I would say it's not going to be in the scope for the next 6 months, but something we're evaluating for next year.
Okay, great. All right, and then we also had a question about the to option. Does it send one email to all? And can they see who received it, or does it send one email at a time to each recipient?
So that's actually going to be controlled by our group recipients feature. Group recipients is available in MicroStrategy 2020 and above. But prior to that release, it would always be, regardless of where the email or the contact is, whether it's to CC, BCC, it would always be one email per recipient. With the group by functionality, which is enabled by default on the newer versions of our software, if the users will receive the same content, which means they have the same security profiles, there's no risk of data being sent to the incorrect person, then we will actually follow exactly how it's set up on the subscription. So there will be a single email sent, and it will have everyone who is in the to field, in the to field, in the CC field, in the CC field, and then it will BCC whoever is placed in those fields.
Okay, great. And we also got a question about whether you can put a subscription on pause without deleting it. Morgan, do you want to go ahead and answer this one?
Sure, yeah, I can answer this one. So I typed a request or a response there as well, but essentially today we don't have like an official pause button for subscriptions, but there is a workaround that you can use where if you adjust the date in the stop delivering after field to a date that's in the past, it will pause that subscription effectively, and you can come back to it and adjust that date to a date in the future when you're done making whatever changes you'd like to make. That being said, I do think that we are hoping to include this sort of pause functionality where you can just press play and press pause and easily turn it on and off, but we're just not quite there yet.
Okay, great. And let's see. Also, we've got a question about the multi-content subscriptions and the message, like the email body. Can you add reports inline?
I can answer this one as well. So yeah, right now we have the same support as we would in Narrowcast for multi-content subscriptions. So essentially, if I want to send a report, let's say I have report A and I want to send it in the body of the email, as well as in an Excel file format, as well as in a PDF format, and then I also want to send, dossier B as an MSTR file, I can put all of those in one email. So we do support the reports and documents in the body of the email as HTML formats. You would just pick HTML in those drop downs. And then we're working on, for later this year, as I showed in the roadmap piece of this presentation, the support for dossiers in the body of the email as well. So you should be able to cover all of those fields and send them in the actual email body.
Okay, great. And right now, this is the last question we have up here. So you mentioned that update will allow schedules that will run on the last business day or last day of the month. Is it also possible for us to import our company's fiscal calendar to use with schedules?
Yeah, so that is not yet supported, but is a great enhancement request and something that I've seen with a couple customers now. So I would encourage you to work with your account team to submit an enhancement, really detailing your use cases as to how you would maybe want to see that implemented in the product. And that will reach us in technology, and we'll be able to prioritize that functionality a little bit sooner.
Okay, great. All right. Thank you, everyone. I think now we're gonna end this Q&A session since I don't see any more questions there. But really that was some great helpful information, and you could always go back to our recording after to see the answers there again. So next slide, Andrew. All right, so just want to let everyone know that you can register right now for our next webinar, which is going to be in July. You'll get to hear from our experts about how to get started with MicroStrategy Cloud. Really an exciting and popular topic, so definitely encourage you to register. You can go to tinyurl.com/MSTR2021 webinars, but we'll also send out the registration link with the follow-up email from this session. And next slide. All right. So in the meantime, if you want to hear from our experts, get some more information, and ask our experts questions, I highly encourage you to check out our expert.now feature. It says introducing expert.now, but this has actually been about a year that we've had it in place. It's an awesome new experience and way to get all of your MicroStrategy questions answered. It's an on-demand video conferencing service, and you can sign up for a 30-day free trial. And with that 30-day free trial of an Architect Pass, you also get access to all 56 of our education courses that are available in our catalog. And so really encourage you to check it out. But if you have further questions about distribution services, you can always contact us through expert.now or by creating a support ticket with us. And if you also want to get more enhanced access to our experts on a regular basis, you can go to our support website to learn more about upgrading to one of our 3 premium support plans. So thanks everyone, and we hope this was helpful and that we see you all in our July session on cloud.